approach sometimes the effects that you use with the type of music the music is inspired by. So if there are some of those sort of 80s elements done, do some effects that would complement that, or play some effects that were used quite a lot in that type of music. That can show you, okay, try the phaser with the reverb or the delay with the phaser. Trying these type of ideas will complement it well, because there's a reason why those, the flanger, the phaser, delays, the reverbs, and the way that we use, there's a reason for that type of music that worked really well for that type of music. Yeah, that's a very sort of classic sort of sound, but that was back in the day. You had that sort of vinyl break and a bit of sort of that crush, and then sort of mimics that sound a little bit, which I love. So that's what we're doing now. We're adding sort of as that sort of vinyl break comes out, I know that it's going to detune it, and then we add that crush in for that detune. Cool. So now you see we're just playing with the mix, right? We're having a bit of fun with it. We're adding in those sort of effects that we like. It can be anything that you like, whatever effects that you've found to be your sort of go-to, or you want to try something new. This is the moment where you can try that effect or those type of effects. You can really experiment and have some fun with it now. This is your moment where you can be creative with what you do. So you notice how very different tones. So from the beginning and then we move on. Very different. Cool. Now, you notice how we've gone from sort of that sort of lower, sort of darker tone to a very sort of bright tone, and now we're sort of going in between. So we have one, then the other, then we'll sort of in between that. We'll sort of have this sort of bright, but a bit of a darker tone to it. Okay? So we've added in some effects, have a bit of fun with it. Again, I'm emphasizing you're doing it with the mix. So and you can add doubles, you can add effects, you can add a bit of phaser, with the song, not just you're doing it with the beat, okay? Or you can do it off the beat, yeah. But you want to do it creatively with the music. Cool. That's where that phaser comes in. So, one approach is the texture of the music is sort of arcing back to that sort of the disco, the 80s, the type of effects that we used then. And you want to approach sometimes the effects that you use with the type of music the music is inspired by. So if there are some of those sort of 80s elements done, do some effects that would complement that, or play some effects that were used quite a lot in that type of music. That can show you, okay, try the phaser with the reverb or the delay with the phaser. Trying these type of ideas will complement it well, because there's a reason why those, the flanger, the phaser, delays, the reverbs, and the way that we use, there's a reason for that type of music that worked really well for that type of music. Cool. Now, a little sort of trick here that you can do is with the channel fader, you can do a sort of, a bit of obviously the sort of trance effect that we've talked about. So you can create a bit of that flutter. Cool. Now, how would you sort of build up that flexibility to do something like that? I have that from years of playing guitar, and I've also developed that from manually adjusting the tempo of the songs. The setting that I have on the decks allows me to really finesse manual tempo so that I can really get it where I want it to be. And that you really need a fine sort of touch to make sure you can get it on, especially when you can get it on. Especially when you are really aggressively changing the tempo. So you're going from like, 130 to 80 or 90. You really need to practice being very fine, adjusting the tempo with that. And that will help you really develop that dexterity to move quickly with the fader. You become much more natural at using it. With that in mind, that's one approach you can take to really build up that flexibility in your hands to be able to move the fader quickly. It's a very standard technique used in more traditional vinyl mixing, scratching, which I should say, vinyl scratching, beat scratching, that kind of stuff. Very, very common to use, but they will use the master fader down the bottom, and you can still apply that to your channel fader. The only difference is they'll have one song playing on the left and then the right, and they can switch quickly between the two. You can also practice it like that to develop that dexterity. So if you want to approach mixing from that perspective and doing that scratching and stuff like that, that's really cool. I've been getting into that slowly as well. Wanting to incorporate segments of that into my mixing more and more. It's not the easiest thing to get the hang of. It takes time to really get the transitions in that scenario to be very smooth when you're scratching, wanting to switch between the next. It takes time. It takes time. Just like everything else I mentioned takes time. And there are things that I'm pushing towards and wanting to get better in, and that's one area that I've been looking into more and more. The great thing about the Pioneer decks, they really do allow you to do that. You can really change the sensitivity of the tone, so you can really dig in, which is really cool. They're not as flexible as traditional sort of turntables, but they do a pretty good job, and it's a good way to develop the fundamentals of that. There is a video online about I think it's the 14 or the 15 different levels of vinyl scratching, which you should definitely check out. If I remember, I'll put it in the description. Fantastic video, and it really shows the development of going from sort of level 1 to etc. And the key there, which I found really great, was taking the one aspect and putting it with another, and not just as you go to the next sort of stage, you're not just forgetting fundamental. You're applying that and you're adding on top of that and moving to the next one and the next one. So great video to check out and something to think about if you want to get into that space more of really switching quickly between applying more of the sort of scratching into your mix.